Myth is brutal Amiga platforming. Let's check it out on Amigos, Everything Amiga. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're talking about Myth. You know, Aaron, we just did Gods like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so all of my ridiculous banter topics have been exhausted. We talked about the Greek gods. We talked about what you'd like to do if you were a god. We can't even use the alternate story arc for this game because it doesn't exist in the Amiga version, which was boy goes back in time to the land of the gods and goes to town.
Yeah. There were slight changes. We have something we can talk about though, and that's like just straight up wanton violence. Because this game, remember when Barbarian you played that game and you do the move? There was a big move, and if you did it, you could behead the other guy. Remember that? And how cool it was when you pulled it off. You're like, man, and how furious you were when you got it done to you. Like in this game, you're beheading suckers like you're out cutting the lawn. Just not nonstop.
If you're going to town with a melee weapon, do you think that's a real word, or was it invented for D&D? Melee. Weapon?
I think it's a real word, but it helps in
I've
D&D.
never read it anywhere outside of the DM manual. So, are you going to have a sword? Are you going to have a mace? Or are you going to have an axe?
Well, I usually, in terms of D&D, I'm a big dwarf guy, because I like that Warhammer. I like the axe. I'm down with that. Dwarves are kind of sturdy guys. They're not mega. They're not tall, but they're like thick and mean. And they're cool looking. So I like when I'm driving around a dwarf. I like a warhammer. It's really my weapon of choice. If I'm also a big fan of the old half elf. You never go full elf. I always go half elf. And so when it comes to the half elf, I like your quicker weapons, like the old rapiers and that sort of thing. That's what I dig with those guys, because I like the idea of having some kind of like, I don't know, Errol Flynn type elf or something. I guess in my mind, that's what I'm looking for.
He's basically Robin Hood already,
That's right.
Robin Hood with pointy ears is what you want.
When you've never played Shadowrun, because when you think of elves, you think of like the woods, frolicking in the trees, stuff like that. So when you play a game like Shadowrun, with you've got urban elves, and that's tough to get. Tough to get around. I don't know. They're just, and do you know the premise of Shadowrun?
It's like set in the future, corporations control everything. It's
That's
like Blade
right.
Runner, the role-playing game.
It's like Blade Runner, and then to someone, I swear to you, it's like Cyberpunk or something, and someone's like, hey, let's put some D&D stuff in it. And Gary Gygax was like, I'm down. And so it's got orcs and trolls, and you can play all these, and elves and whatnot, and it's fun. It's a mashup that actually works for the game. So when you're playing that game, you've got I get rid of you're not gonna get by with a rapier or something. You got to have something cooler than that. So that's where we have to break out the smart link for the gun that fits in your hand. That's pretty, that kind of crap. But I'm not a full elf guy even in that. Now, do you have a preference when you play that stuff? Obviously, I haven't played that.
I feel like you are doing yourself a disservice by not having a bladed weapon. When you go into battle, you want to have something that can cut junk.
Yeah.
You can have something like you can kill two birds with one stone with something like a great axe, because a great axe is heavy. It's two-handed, but it also has a keen edge. Because listen, I don't want to like smash somebody's face in, because I don't like violence. I want to decapitate them. Okay, that's a clean cut. It's a painless death.
The problem is when you miss. Then what happens? You stick that axe right down into the floor, and then you're sitting there trying to pull it out of the floor like a doofus while somebody's pounding the crap out of you. You know what I mean?
I've pretty much got one move when it comes to defending my life. I swing wild, and if I miss, I just lay down and die. That's it. I know it's over.
Have you ever in real life swung a big axe?
No. Well, I've swung a mattock before, which I think is sort of like it's like a big firewood
That's
splitting
you mean the
utensil.
thing you d no, that's not like an I'm talking a big like the golden axe. Remember the
No, I've
golden
never
axe
swung
and
a real
golden
golden
axe?
axe before. No.
I
What's
mean,
it
they've
like?
got I don't know, but I'd like to swing one. You know, we should go to one of these SCA events. You ever been to one
Yes.
of those?
Yes. I would love to do that with you.
You look like a dork, unfortunately, when you're out there fighting with these foam weapons, but they got
I look
real
like a
ones sitting
dork
around.
naturally. It won't
Well,
matter.
you got a valid point there, Bode.
You'll be the only cool guy out there. The rest of us will be dorking it up.
I went to one of these when I was in college, and I
Mhm.
told myself never again. I did.
What is SCA different than Renaissance Fair?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's these are the same. They are a feeder group for the Renaissance people, I'm sure. The SCA is just where you get together and you make your own armor and you make your own weapons, and then you just fight. But the weapons are like foam tipped, and foam swords and stuff like that. So you can't actually, theoretically, you're not supposed to kill each other. Although I have seen people fight with real weapons and real armor, but even
Mm.
then, they're like blunted or whatever. You
Mhm.
don't wanna actually go out and fight. I'm sure people get hurt all the time doing that, but
Do they have jousting?
they do. Crappy
I'd love
jousting.
to
I've
see
seen that.
that.
It's not that good, Bode.
Mm.
Jousting at these at tournaments, it's almost like wrestling. It's a work, brother, as the Hulkster would say. I know there are jousting leagues, you know, but,
Mhm.
I've never seen anyone in real life actually joust. It reminds me when I went to the fair to see the Demolition Derby, and they put the
Mhm.
cars in a mud pit that's the size of like a tenth of a football field where you can't get any speed. And so like they can barely move and they kind of run into each other. There's a ting and they go, look at that crowd, and the crowd's like, yeah, you know, I've been to a real Demolition Derby. I would see some people get dealt with, man.
In
Much like
demolition
in
derbies, do
jousting.
they have a play-by-play man that's over the PA?
Sometimes they've got like one of the guys, you know, like the monster truck guys. He's deep
Mhm.
in the mud. That guy.
Right.
Sometimes it depends on how cheap they are. Sometimes there's no amount of guy that can make the thing fun. I wouldn't even want to
I'll
try
tell
that
you
job.
what I would like to do. I'm a simple man.
I've heard that.
I would like to don a Renaissance tunic and, put on one of those poofy hats,
Yeah.
go to one of these things, and eat a turkey leg. That's all I
Well,
want.
break out your checkbook, brother, because those turkey legs ain't cheap. And if you buy the tunic and crap at the Renaissance Fair, you're gonna be in for hundreds and hundreds of dollars, brother.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Trust me,
Mm.
I took the kids to the Renaissance Fair to West Virginia, my son and his little buddy chick, and they both wanted me to get them full jester outfits. And I was like, they don't have those, but if they did, I was looking at the price of this stuff. It's like a ringmail tunic was like $800 or something. Now I'm not saying it doesn't take a long time to make a ringmail tunic because I know it does.
Mhm.
I know a guy that makes them, but I mean, I'm not paying $800 for one. Is my point.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I want they
Maybe
need like
I can get the classic, Halloween costume version where it's the plastic sheet with the picture of the tunic right in the middle.
or just a picture of a shield on there and a sword. Yeah, that's what we should go for, Boat.
Aaron, let's talk about Myth.
Oh man. Man, this game's got a bunch of like awesome themes. I will say
Yeah,
that.
it's got an awesome title screen too. Look at that thing.
That's actually the death
Fire
screen
Eye
right
with the
there. Yeah.
skulls.
Yeah. So here we got this is quite a game here, folks. I'm not gonna lie to you. The game is called Myth, as Boat mentioned, or Myth History in the Making is the full title, Boat, if you
Mhm.
are down with that. Published in 92 by System 3. System 3 known for their Last Ninja series, Boat.
Yeah.
Which I believe we had a hand at back in the day. Um, this game was designed by Mark Cale and also produced by Mark Cale. And Mark did some stuff, you know. We've got a full cast of systems. I'm assuming there's not a design group listed on for this game. And so what you've got here is just a collection of people that worked on a lot of like System 3 stuff. Kale, Dave, Carl Kalu, Dave Collins, Steve Wetherill, and they worked on a lot of these guys worked on stuff like remember the Putty games,
Mhm.
and Super Putty, Putty Squad.
They
Uh,
love their putty games.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm just saying they're in there. Of course, a lot of them worked on Last Ninja 3, so you've got a lot of that stuff in here. So these guys have they have they've got a good backing for a game like this. This is an OCS ECS joint, 3 discs, and when this thing came out, you were paying around £26. You've got double versions of this on the Amiga, the regular version and the CD32 version. Did you try both of them, or do you recall which one?
I did not. I tried just your regular non-CD32 version
I
of this
played
game on the
mostly
Amiga.
the CD32 version.
Okay. From
So
what I can tell, they are identical.
well, I thought it might help me in the control area, and it did, I think, because I was able to, pick controls fairly easily. This game stunningly got around. I mean, I was real surprised that a game that looked like this was on so many machines. This was on the Amstrad CPC, the C64, the ZX, and also had a NES release as another name, which we'll get to that in a little while. Uh, you mentioned this earlier, Boat. The plot of the game, and we got to talk about the plot for just a moment. The plot of the game changed between when the C64, the other versions came out, and when the Amiga version came out. Just to summarize, in the other versions, the non-Amiga versions, you do play, as Boat mentioned, a teenage boy from the 20th century. He falls through a tear in the time-space continuum, that old chestnut, and is
Mhm.
transported to the time of legends. And there they tell him that the world's under attack from Dameron, the Dark Angel of Time. You got to go
Hammer.
around, yeah, and basically get all the stuff you need to take out Dameron. That's the old game. That's okay. The plot of the Amiga game, I think, has got cooler. So in the Amiga game, uh, Ankalagan, that's a name. A
Mhm.
mystical warrior from the year 63 AD uses the powers of Stonehenge to travel in time and
Oh,
combat evil.
listen, if
And
you're
then
gonna tap into power, that's where you wanna tap it
that's
from.
right. And then at the end of the game, you're also taking on Dameron. He's back. So you actually end up getting to the same place through a different means. I like the plot better in the Amiga version, but that's just me. Um, this game is an unusual title in that you have you run or it's a how would you a platform combat game
This
with
is a
puzzle
this
elements
I would call this a platform beat 'em up. That's what I'd call this game.
with puzzle
There are
elements.
there are puzzle elements, but
Yeah,
this is not a puzzle game.
it's not it. You know what this reminded me of before we get too deep into it. This reminded me a little bit of like Shadow of the Beast 3. Where it's like, remember now when it's a game it's where you run around and jump and attack stuff,
There's
but
a
it
lot
also has
more puzzling in there's a lot more puzzling in Shadow of the Beast 3.
yeah,
This
well,
game has one puzzle in it,
this game has more than one puzzle. It's got
not
different.
that
It's
I
got
saw.
yeah. Well, I don't know how far you got into this thing. So when this thing comes up, Boat, it does come up with this really cool logo, and then
Mhm.
like we played the opening, the name of the game's on fire. It's got this
Yeah.
fiery opening. It's got this real. It's got multiple startup tunes that sound awesome. What'd you think about this when it first honed into view, Boat?
This game impresses at first blush, and second blush, really. You get right into the action. You don't get anything by way of story. You've got to consult your manual for
Yeah,
story. It would have been great to have a little, like a one screen intro or something. You do get stage. The stages are named. I
yeah.
think the first one is called like the Caves of the Damned or something like that. And then you get right into it. When that so my first impressions of the game, I guess, were pretty favorable because it ticks all the boxes for me. I want to have something before the game just starts, and I was able to kind of see where was I, and the music was cool. So yeah, first impressions positive.
Yeah, this game comes up. I'm just thinking to myself, if I was like a teenage boy, and I'm still sort of like one, and so when this game came up, I was like, "Oh man, this is getting me fired up to do something." And I'm going
Yeah.
to Hades. This is gonna be
Right.
cool. Uh, and then the game starts up, and you are a guy who sort of looks like he kind of reminds me of like Logan from
Yeah.
Wolverine.
That's
He looks
exactly what I thought. He looks like Logan.
yeah,
What's
he's
his
got the
last name?
hair. He's got the hair pop like blowing back in the wind, which sort of like
What's
Logan's
Logan's
goofy
last
hair.
name?
Oh, he doesn't
Logan
have
Smith?
one. He's just Logan. That's his name.
Really?
He's
Weird.
like Sade or something.
Mm.
Well, not really. Now think about it, but you know what I mean. One name. But you guys got on blue jeans, and you start off on a platform in Hades, and the first thing that happens is skeletons are coming out of the ground. You're like, "Wow, this looks like it's gonna be cool." And then more skeletons come out, and then you realize, how do I attack? What's
Mhm.
happening? And then
Mhm.
demons show up, and more skeletons, and then you die, but right away because you have no idea what you're doing. Even with the manual, you don't know. What were
Mhm.
your once you actually started playing the game? What were your impressions?
Well, I thought what we have here is a game that is pretty unique in its style. I guess it is in most platforming games, enemies take one, maybe two hits to defeat. In this game, enemies take 6 or 7 hits to defeat with your basic weapon, which is the old fist. Okay?
Or foot?
And or foot. Yeah, you do have kick power in this game. He must be wearing the stretchy jeans.
He's like Shawn
And
Michaels. That's what I
well,
thought.
more
He's
like the
super
Chuck
kick
Norris
ass.
acting jeans. And so anyway, I was like, okay, I've got to figure out how to get some weapons. And I was shocked at just how stalwart these skeletons were. Because if you think about an enemy that should go down without a fight, it's a
Yeah.
skeleton. Because there's literally nothing holding their bones together except for the power of mystical magic.
They've
But
already
anyway,
lost. They lost before they started back up. So you're
that's
fighting
right.
at you already beat them once, but yeah, they're back
That's right.
again.
Then I noticed that this is one of these games that has the old if you stand in the right place and if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, depending how you look at it, enemies will just keep coming. They'll keep forming out of the ground without
Yeah.
mercy. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to negotiate yourself to a place where you can beat up some skeletons so you can actually get a weapon. Okay. So you start out and you're going and you get your dagger. Then once you get the dagger, that's when the game really starts to get more fun because you can dispatch the skeletons without nearly as much hullabaloo, and also that's where you get your awesome move set from. This game has what I call the infamous Lionheart
Oh,
control
I knew
scheme.
you were gonna say it. I knew it.
This is where, and this is where you hold down a button and then you press your joystick in a direction to affect the swinging of the sword. So you've got your basic stab. You've got a really cool backhanded maneuver
Yeah.
where
It's
if
very
you
nonchalant.
yeah, if
It's
you're
just like, "Get off
facing
me."
yeah, if you're facing one direction, you sort of bring the sword up into the back, almost
Yeah.
like you're a traffic cop waving on the traffic,
Is
and you
that a
can
real
kill enemies
move in
that way.
sword fighting, Boat? I mean, you're a swordsman.
Well, I think that it probably could be, but what happens is that you're sort of leaving yourself open for another attack from another way,
It's
seeing
a good
they're
point.
extended in the opposite
I
direction.
hadn't thought of that.
And then you also have your decapitation maneuver, which is a straightforward sort of outward swing. We call it an Ichimonji cut in the
Oh,
Ido, which is
inside baseball right there.
right across the top there. And so anyway, you've got a goodly amount of sword moves that you can do. And then in addition to that, when you kill a demon, as is proper, you pick up a fireball, and you've got a projectile weapon in addition to that.
A
Um,
limited one.
yeah, you've got a limited projectile weapons. So what you're doing in the first stage is you're essentially maneuvering around, killing skeletons, killing demons, and if you don't know what you're doing, that's all you're going to be doing because there's no clear way to get out of this stage until you solve the puzzle of Hades.
Yeah. Which is thankfully is written in full in the book.
Yeah.
Otherwise, thank you,
This is
book.
one of these games that I wonder if they were like, we're going to put this out here and we're just going to do the old Spectrum thing where it's like, you're going to have to figure it out on your own. And the
Yeah.
publisher was like, no, we're not going to do that because nobody's going to be able to figure this out. And we actually want to make some money.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm going to give the people at System 3 some kudos here. All right. This is a game that starts off. Okay, well, first I'm going to bury him. Okay,
Okay.
this game starts off in the stupidest way possible. Just having, I hate games the second you start, you've got an endless supply of bad guys that are literally attacking you the
Well,
second you start.
it's the Euro way.
Well, I don't like it. That's a dumb way.
That
I
means you
hate
don't
it.
like Europe.
No, it's not. That's not what it means. Anyway, so that no good, bad. But once you come to grips with this, okay, I've got I've got to get out of here and move around. Then you're right. I didn't read the docs. I was just like, let's just see how long it takes to get out of this level. And so if you go all the way, if you jump all the way to the right, there's a big, who's like a chimera up there who's just go bananas,
You
and
wouldn't
you
believe
can't
how
hurt
many
him.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many different ways I tried to hit that Chimera because I was like,
Yeah,
"Listen, this is the thing you gotta beat. It's the boss." And
yeah.
I would get behind it, I would get to where it couldn't hit me. I would hit it with fireballs, I would swing my sword at it, nothing kills it.
Unhit killable. And then if you
Mhm.
say, okay, I'll take the low road, which I often take, I might add, you get to a point where this is like mega jump. You're like, I can make that. You can't make that. You fall to your death every time you try it. So it's fall to your death or not fall to your death. So I was like, okay, I've got to get some help with this level. Still hadn't checked the docs. So I watched the sucker play the game, and he just nonchalantly gets past the thing couldn't get past. I'm like, what did he do? I don't even know what he did. So then I went to the manual, and so it turns out you've got to get past that Chimera, you've got to get a special weapon. Well, to get the weapon, you've got to kill a skeleton on the bottom level, and you have to chop his head off with a special move that
There
sends the head into the lava.
there there's 3 different things you have to do to kill the Chimera,
Yeah,
okay? The first thing you have to do is there's a skeleton that's hanging by a chain on the top level,
yeah.
okay? You gotta cut that chain, and the skeleton falls into the lava.
Did you
Then you
follow
gotta
him
drop
down to see what happened? Because I thought he had to kill that guy.
I
So I
don't
tried
think I don't
forever.
I don't think that it's possible for you to get down there in time to see what happens to him.
Right. You
But
can't.
the
But
next
I
thing you have to
tried.
do is you go down to the bottom level, and then there's going to be a skeleton that forms itself out of the ground, as all the other skeletons do. You have to position yourself in such a way that when you do the decapitation maneuver, the skull bounces off the end of the ledge and goes into the lava. There is nothing in the game that indicates that this is what you have to do to beat this puzzle. This
Yeah.
is horrible, horrible level design because
And the
when you're
skeleton
designing a
looks
puzzle,
exactly like all
right?
other skeletons. That's the thing
When
that
you're
threw me.
designing a puzzle game, you want to give the player at least some idea that this is maybe what you have to do. But there's
Yeah.
nothing. There's none of that. What they should have done is put like a big golden urn or something, at the edge of that precipice, and you have to cut the skeleton's head off and get the skeleton to go into the urn, some sort of a basket or something to give you an idea because there's nothing. It's just you're knocking the skeleton head into the lava. It
Yeah.
should not summon that demon lord. You haven't done something cool enough to summon the demon lord.
And the Demon Lord is double cool.
He
He
looks
comes up
awesome.
and he unleashes another guy on you with a trident, and you got to take
Hmm.
him out. By the way, when Boat's right, everything you said is dead on. But when this guy comes out of the lava, he's in the shadows. He's looking all sinister. That he unleashes this guy with the trident. Aside from the crap that we didn't know what we were doing, that part's awesome. That looks
That was
great.
actually, yeah, yeah.
Then you get that
I made it to
trident.
I made it to the third level of
Oh,
Myth,
very good, Boat.
and
Um,
that there is nothing cooler than what happens in that first level when he looks sort of like a demented genie, and it's
yeah.
all parallax too because he shows up in the foreground in front of the stage and he's giant, and then when he unleashes his mini demon, you can only kill that bad boy with fireballs. Okay, and so what happens is you kill the lesser demon with the fireballs. The trident flops to the floor. You collect the trident. This would be a good time to talk about how inventory is managed in this game. Yet another example of poor UI in an Amiga title.
Yes, go ahead, Boat.
This would have been a perfect game because ducking in this game does nothing. You have no ducking ability. When you're a god, you don't need a duck. Okay? So what they should have done was they should have done the old down and the fire button to switch your weapons. Well, they didn't. Instead, what you have to do is you have to hit the arrow keys to select, or you have to hit the space bar to select your weapon. Wait, you've got to do it twice. It's like spacebar, I think, or is it spacebar or is it the arrow keys that move your?
I used the CD32. I didn't do any of that
Oh,
stuff.
okay. I think on the Amiga pad, I think you use the arrow to select your weapon, and they do it in the dumbest way possible too, because you've got three inventory slots. Your middle inventory slot is the item you've got selected, which is dumb. It should be the one that's closest to you. It should be the one that makes sense. But anyway, I can forgive that. What I can't forgive is you have to equip your weapon.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
not only do you have to push over on the arrow keys to select your weapon, then you have to hit the space bar to equip your weapon. This is all the while you're fighting off hordes of skeletons and demons and all the other things that you have to fight in this game. It totally takes you out of the experience. It makes the game tremendously frustrating, and there's no practical reason why they would have had to have done it that way.
I pondered this quite a bit. By the way, in the CD32 version, you use the left and right upper buttons to go through the inventory,
Okay,
and
that's
then
much better.
you use the blue button to select. Well, selecting is still dumb, and so I thought to
Yeah.
myself, why would they have made it so you had to select the weapon as opposed to just putting it where you wanted it? Which makes way more sense because it's, and trust me, you're right. It sounds sort of like a minimal effort, but you've got a lot going on. It's not like you can sit around pondering this crap. You need it right. So I can only assume that at some point, or maybe strategically, you can have a weapon selected, but not, or positioned, but not selected, so you can get it out there quick. Like I know in the docs, they mentioned that when you throw the trident at Yamura, they're like, you might want to go ahead and have it ready to go. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that was part of the plan, but I don't. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't get anywhere where that needed was that. It was
I
not
mean,
good.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. In theory, that makes sense. But in practicality, in order to get to where the chimera is, you have
Yeah.
to hold the sword until the very last second. And so when you select the trident, it's just like select the trident and go, because you're gonna die if you don't do it right away.
Well,
So I
here's the way I.
understand where they were. Go ahead.
I mean, I here's the way I look at it. If there is some point in the game where this comes into play, that's fine. All I know is I also got to level 3, and it never came into play once, and I had to scream at the stupid controls the entire time. So that means I hate it. I don't
Yeah.
care if it's handy later or not. It's not if I can't not good enough, basically. So I don't like that. I'm right there with you. I will say on the that's the main reason I used the CD32 version was so I could use the full controller. Having those shoulder buttons to flip through your stuff, that helped a ton. So
Mhm.
that's definitely the way to go if you're going to play this in 2023. I would go and play
Absolutely.
that version of that. Um, so let's talk about the levels themselves. Generally, they're not what I would call. They're actually refreshingly not ridiculously long or complicated. They're
Right.
pretty straightforward. They're a lot like the levels in Last Ninja 2, what we played, where the levels were there and you whip through them. They weren't easy, but they weren't like a million miles long.
Mhm.
This game has some real wacky stuff in it, though. We're looking right now on the second level where you approach a goddess who, and by the way, this game's got tons of like audio, like digitized audio in it. So a lot of
Mhm.
stuff talks to you and stuff. And she beckons you forth, but she'll stop you at some point. And if you don't stop, she turns into this like creature and comes over and kills you. It's pretty
Mhm.
cool. But if you do everything you're supposed to do there, which I consider this a puzzle too, by the way, if you do everything you're supposed to do there, she gives you an extra life, like extra hit point, basically,
It also
for
gives
your
you a
life
shield
bar.
that you can use.
Yeah. And so that because by the way, you don't have to like I got past her without actually getting it. So you could keep going and just not have that stuff. Trust me,
That's
it
exactly
sucks.
right. That's what I did. I just kept jumping. I just kept
Yeah.
jumping over because the second level, the game changes completely. And instead of being in a cavern where you're doing horizontal and vertical movement, it's entirely horizontal movement. You're just
Yeah.
basically running. You are, in the sort of outdoor Greek environment with temples and columns and all
There's
kinds of stuff.
hoplites all over the place, and they just again this game has a flaw. One of the big flaws is that the enemies is dumb, and these guys
Mhm.
just continuously come at you, which is annoying. And this is sort of the enemies. That's sort of the way they are for the whole game. But yeah, I thought the woman part of that level was cool, and then the game sort of. This game, I would also call the level design uneven. I guess is the way I would put it. You may disagree with
Mhm.
that, boat. There's a level where you take on the Medusa, which is the one after what we just talked about. It's another where excuse me, first you have to take on the Hydra, and the Hydra, I didn't have the shield. So when I got past that to get to the Hydra, and then I didn't have it for the Medusa either. So I just had to basically kill them by cheating. I should mention that I used after a spell, I used a unlimited man code. I don't know if you did the
Oh,
same.
I use unlimited mans all the time,
Yeah,
but unlimited men do not help you get past the Medusa, which
yeah.
I don't were you able to get past the Medusa
Oh,
without the
yeah,
shield?
it's not hard at
Okay,
all. She's actually
okay.
all you have to do is just walk up to her, and she's got a cadence to when she shoots her, like, stone
'Cause
gaze.
I was thinking that you had to do something special to kill the Medusa,
Nope.
sort of that trident type thing. That's where I met my end in Myth,
No,
so
I actually got past her, and
okay.
I got past the Hydra too. The Hydra took me forever. Now, we should talk about these, end-level monsters. These things are cool looking, man. They are huge. They've got digitized sound, and they're awesome looking, and they're actually sort of like they're almost like console-y. I mean, they're
Yeah,
like proper end bosses, Bode.
console quality end bosses for sure.
Yeah. I think this game gets a lot of stuff right when it comes to the graphics, the mood. It feels epic, like this adventure
Mhm,
you're on, because you're using stuff you're getting from previous encounters to help you get past other encounters. But I
right.
like the fact that you don't have to have it. Like I said, I never had the shield, for example, but I could. It made it a lot harder, but there are still ways to get past stuff, which I like that. The game for me took a turn after the Hydra were on the boat. That got a little weird there. But if you watch, I don't know if you watched the whole game. The end of this game goes into because eventually you're in Egypt. You do a whole
Mhm,
thing in the pyramids, and then this game gets really surreal, where you go into these out of body experiences that are like shoot 'em up. They're like shmups.
mhm.
They really are thinking outside the box on this thing. And so that when ultimately, because we've sort of been meandering through this, like talking about the various levels and stuff, but when we get to the point where we summarize the game, like the game itself, is the game flawed? Absolutely. Is the game's system of inventory? It could be better. It could be a lot better than it is on the version Boat played. But man, I can't help but love this game because it's so awesome looking and cool, and it's so creative. The backgrounds are creative. The levels are different. It's just a different sort of game that I've played before. Even with the flaws in it, I can absolutely see how someone could enjoy it. Did you enjoy, in terms of the actual platforming and the control of the guy? I mean, how did you feel about the way you moved him around, aside from the inventory?
I thought this game was fine.
Yeah,
This game is always going to suffer from having up for jump, and it's always going to suffer for only having one button.
yeah,
But if you take those considerations, in stride, this game controls well, and it gives me the two things that I want in an action platforming game. Okay, I want to see multiple levels
yeah.
and I want to see variety. And this game
Yes.
delivers both of those in spades. Like you said, the levels all look completely different. The enemies are all different on all the levels, and they're also very well animated. They're colorful. This is a very colorful title, despite the first level being set in a cave. This game takes you through all different places. It really takes you on a journey.
Yeah, it
You
does.
really feel like you're going to all these different locations. This doesn't seem like a game that was just sort of hacked together and got something out the door. These guys had a vision for what they wanted the game to be, and I think that they delivered on it. I mean, it's a difficult game. I don't know if this is one of these games that anybody can actually complete without cheating, but I thought that this game really it's a shining example of what an action platformer can be on the Amiga, and I thought it was very well done.
It's I like the fact that you had no idea what was coming up, and like
Mhm.
you don't know what style of gameplay it was going to be. Some levels I like better than others. I admit, like we're looking at this forest, so I hated this level. All right, it was horrible, but It was still atmospheric. It looked cool. Every level seems to have like a gimmick to get
I
through
love
them.
the fact there's a special weapon in every level. The ship
Yeah,
level, you've got a great axe, and this level you've got throwing daggers. Again,
yeah,
it's just mixing it up. How many games have we played where it's basically the same game for 2.5 hours?
right.
This
And
is different. This is better.
now I'll look at this game. I'm trying to be objective here. If someone bought me this game and it was 1992 or 1989, whenever it came out, and uh, um, I'm playing it with no cheats and I'm on just a joystick, I'm not gonna lie, I would not like it as much. With the control pad for the CD32 and unlimited men, I know this is a lot of ifs. I had a good time with the game because I enjoyed exploring the world. I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, the Last Ninjas are like that too, but this is way better in my opinion. I can't
Well,
figure out why Last Ninja.
Last Ninja is a totally different game. It's got
But I
that
mean, it's an
weird three-quarter
exploration
perspective.
game. Yeah, but you don't know what's
Yeah.
gonna happen, that's what I'm saying. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, you're right, but I'm saying that I like those games where you don't know where you're going or what's
Yeah.
gonna happen the next level, and this is one of those, and it's fun. And like I said, the last couple levels are real super trippy, like, someone really, put a lot of brain power into coming up with these levels. I didn't get to play them, I just saw them, but they were really cool. It's got a cool ending, you know? There's a lot of cool stuff in between. Every level has something fun and interesting that happens in it. I really liked it. This game, well, we mentioned it got ported to a lot of stuff, but I wanted to highlight the NES port of this game. Believe it or not, I know. This had an NES port. It was released as Conan: The Mysteries of Time, Boat.
Yeah.
And now, Boat, you tried this. What did you think of it?
Horrible.
Yeah, it's got
Horrible
bad
game.
reviews.
I mean, this is one of these things where you get these games that come over from the continent on the Nintendo, and you're just like, man, this is like one of those Action 52 Codemasters unlicensed crap. But then you look at it and actually was licensed. It went through, it had the Nintendo seal of quality, which isn't is if it's not an indictment on all that stands for,
Yeah,
nothing is.
yeah, no
This is
kidding.
it plays horribly. It looks like absolute garbage. It is a poor excuse for a license with a license like Conan. Your guy better be awesome, and your guy is not awesome in Conan. He is a
Yeah,
weenie. He's no good.
yeah.
So
That's a Now you played a
it's
few
sort
other
of
versions of
weird.
this. You
It's
played a
sort of
few other
weird.
versions too, didn't you? What else did you get into?
I was gonna say it's sort of weird. I would like to know the timeline because this would be an awesome like why didn't they call Myth? Why didn't they use the Conan license for the Amiga release? That would have been really powerful because let's be honest, Myth is not the greatest name for a game. If they had the Conan license available, why didn't they use that for all of the releases? I mean, because that would have really moved some titles, I think. What don't you?
I don't know. I think I don't.
Or you don't think Conan's a strong property?
Oh no, I do think that. Since I don't know why they didn't have the license. I'm assuming because the NES is the NES. They were selling like hotcakes, and someone like paid for the license because they thought they'd make a lot of money. That's a guess.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
that license probably isn't that cheap. I mean, it's not like they were
Mhm.
buying like the Gumby license here. I mean, it's
Right,
Conan, and back
right.
then it was a lot stronger than it is now. So
Mhm.
it is. Who knows? Who knows? Did
But I also played the C64 version. The C64 version is very similar to the Amiga version.
Oh yeah,
It
it
the
looked good on
graphical
the stills.
yeah, the graphical fidelity, of course, not quite the Amiga level, but the opening tunes, all of the music in the C64 version is better than the Amiga version.
Really, because the Amiga
Yeah.
version is really good.
Yeah, I really dug the Sid voiced music on the C64 version, but it's got the same sort of beat 'em up mechanic. Now, I didn't play it enough to get past the first level, so I'm not sure if there were any changes in the later levels. But and then I totally ignored the CPC and the Spectrum versions of the game, which
Yeah,
are from looking at videos of them, they're almost like role-playing games, like a Dizzy type game, where like an adventure platformer where there's a lot more environmental puzzles. which makes sense for a system like the Spectrum that's maybe more geared towards a slightly slower pace of play. The CPC version looks like a horrible version of the Spectrum version, so you should probably avoid that. But at some point in the future, maybe our Sinclair will tackle the CP or the Specky version of Myth and see what it's all about.
I've heard good things about it, if I'm
Mm.
honest. So it might not be too bad. So I found some interesting rather wacky trivia on this game. I'll just go through a little bit because it amused me. So, this the ZX version of this had a helpline phone number with it, both on the
Really?
manual, but the number was incorrectly printed. And so a random lady in Eltham received calls asking about game puzzles,
Oh.
according to the Trivial Moby.
Mm.
Something else, there if you beat this game, it says that the Myth guy's going to be back in a game called The Dawn of Steel, a
Uh-huh.
sequel. It never was made, unfortunately, so that's kind of a
Mm.
bummer. So get this, boat. This was sort of semi-announced to be released on the Sony PlayStation, the PC, the Nintendo 64, and the Saturn, if you could believe that.
Wow.
And so was Last Ninja, by the way. And so speculation is that it never got released, by the way, but there was worked up footage, but or pictures. Who knows? If they were made, how they were made.
Mhm.
But word on the street, according to the article I read, was that um, eventually System 3 was like, well, we're not happy with the engine we've got on these new consoles. We're gonna rework the engine for Last Ninja, and then we're going to release the new version. And since Myth ran on sort of the same engine, they assumed that's what happened, and they never released. Apparently, they never ended up making the new engine.
It
So,
boggles my mind that this runs on the same engine as Last Ninja, because I mean, they're
well,
as
it's
different
I
as
think this
peas
wasn't Last
and
Ninja
apples.
1. It was probably like Last Ninja 3 or something. I
Okay.
don't know exactly. And also, I don't know what System 3 was cooking over there.
Mm.
Yeah, they don't look at all similar in any way. So but I mean, I think this looks really, really good. And we haven't played. I don't think we haven't played the Last Ninja for the Amiga, have we? I can't remember if we have or not.
I don't think we have.
Um, this got a Golden Joystick Award in 1990 for it wasn't this version, it was the C64, which got a graphics award. It was very popular on the C64 as well. So it did okay. In terms of how it did on the Amiga, the scores sort of ran the gamut, but they were so. I mean, they got some pretty good scores. Amiga actually gave it a 96, which that's super high praise. Amiga Joker didn't kill it, 69.
Mhm.
And Amiga, you got a Amiga Mania in there, brother, with a 78. So some pretty decent scores.
Yeah.
Did we get any Discord action on this?
We got quite a few reviews
Oh
this week.
yeah.
Start things off with Alien Breeder. Alien Breeder writes, Myth is an interesting game. It looks great. It's quite brutal. Despite the fact that it does seem to run a little slow and choppy, it still plays fairly well and can be fun. I think other games like Risky Woods or Gods are a bit better, but it's still good fun. 720 top bananas out of 1,000. Jocko 6502 writes, I once dated a woman like this game. Beautiful to look at, but infuriating to interact with. Okay, like the game title, that is a myth. A visual feast for the eyes from the start, but oh no, the developers accidentally knocked the difficulty up to 11. Before you even take a step, a skeleton pops up and starts wailing on you like you owe it money. You start punching or kicking it, but they take an age to die and multiple enemies will spawn, making it quite difficult to stand and fight. You start dropping weapons that do help to a degree, but then comes the cool but over complex weapon system. You slowly eke your way through the game, most baddies taking multiple strikes with no real signposting for goals. It's difficult to know what to do. I ended up looking at a walkthrough more than once. Eventually making it to the Valley of Kings with the Maze of Traps, I called it a night after calling the game something I can't repeat in polite company. The game has its faults from iffy platform detection, cheap baddies, and a game-breaking soft lock on the first level, but I mostly liked it. However, it's just way too much grind and blind flying to truly make it shine. 7 out of 10. Yes. Do not set second button as jump in WSG load. It makes using weapons a pain in the butt. That is
Yes.
true,
Yes.
Pajaco. Retro Jerry writes, great looking game with cool animations and demons. What more could we ask for? How about a semi intuitive control system? I think if the controls were implemented differently, it would be really fun, but I didn't have the time to develop the muscle memory required to have a good time, or I'm just old. Either way, I give it 6 out of 10. And finally, Graham W. Vebke writes, for me, this is a game with nice visuals and audio, but it's horrible to play because of the glitchy scrolling and sketchy controls. It's totally overrated on the Amiga and is far too difficult to get into because of all the cheap deaths. The gameplay is greatly affected by the controls. I think the C64 version destroys the Amiga version because it suffers less from gameplay issues and sketchy controls. Anyone who prefers this over Gods is delusional. He gives it a 4 out of 10 on the Amiga, 7 out of 10 on the C64. Aaron, your final analysis, is this game better than Gods?
It's not really. I don't think they're comparable. If you want the truth, I don't think they're
Mm-hmm.
even that similar. This
Mm-hmm.
Gods is a slow, like thinking man's like game. I mean, there are
Mm-hmm.
puzzles, you are jumping, but I mean that I don't really compare the two. We've played other games that I would say are more like this than Gods.
Mm-hmm.
I want to mention there's a couple things here. Number one, we did mention there were two versions of this. This is one of those funny situations where Lemon, the users of Lemon gave this a 7.8 on the old OCS ECS and it gave the CD 32 version a 6.9. So I'm going to say I don't agree with that. If you're going to play this version, play the CD32 version. I think a lot of people probably haven't played that version, and so they're not getting the access to the better controls. With all that said, you still don't get a button for jump,
Mm-hmm.
despite having a ludicrous amount of buttons. I don't know why they didn't add that. So that's an oversight. And you still can't add a button for jump, or it'll screw up your control. So I mean, I think I don't know if this game is overrated on me because I don't hear anything about it. It's not like we knew about it before this week. Normally if something's overrated, I knew about it coming in. So I'd say this game's probably rated just about what it is. But I thought it was. I mean, if you don't cheat, it's too hard. But it's not Amiga hard. Even if you don't cheat, you can get somewhere once you understand how the game works. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's fun to be had, and a lot of people mention that the puzzles are sort of nonsensical or they don't give you enough clues. The puzzling in this reminded me of just like a classic ZX game we'd play, where this happened all the time. But
Yeah.
people didn't seem to mind not knowing that you have to knock the skull in. At least they gave you hints in the first level so you understand how the game's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I give them kudos for that. But I was ready to kill this game, especially after it started, and I got instantly killed by the skeletons. But I actually enjoyed it, Boat, and
Yeah.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
that this is what I would try. I would come back to.
This is a game that grew on me, but it's only because I cheated.
Yeah, it's good looking too. Hey, listen, you're cheating on the good looking game. It's all right. It's good looking. That's the way I see it.
Are you a sketchy tech? Do you have the right tools for the job? Have there been incidents? Next time, don't try to fix it yourself. Send your broken Amiga to Retro Rewind. Get a full diagnostic, a reasonable estimate, and the peace of mind knowing that your machine is in the hands of real technicians with decades of experience and cutting-edge repair equipment. Save 10% off your repair with the promo code Amigos10. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for supporting this episode.
Amiga News.
All right, Aaron, we got a busy week here in Amiga News. First of all, the new game, Aaron, new racing game that's been released called Rallycross. This is I don't know about your favorite type of racing games, Aaron, but I've got a real affinity for the old top-down variety.
Oh yeah.
There's something about pick up and play. You can see the whole course at once. Usually they're multiplayer, so there's shenanigans to be had. This is a new game that is from Phase 10. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This is from Phase 101's Game Jam on car racing games. Also, a new release at the Flash Party 2023. Um, it says that this is a game that can be played, I believe, on any Amiga. And it looks like, yeah, it can be played on Amiga 600. And this looks pretty good. What do you think about the old top-down genre, Aaron?
I'm okay with it, but this looks incredibly slow. Look at that. It looks so slow. This is like how you would actually drive in the winter. They've got
Yeah,
this wintry road, and these cars are just moping along. Yeah, I mean, I like it. You can tell it's got skid marks that show up on the thing. It's kind of neat. There's a lot of characters. I don't know if they're just not going very quick or what the deal is here, but I like the idea. There's been a million of these. I didn't know about a game jam that was car games. I am into
mhm.
that. That's pretty cool. And hey, I'm always for different fun free games. So this looks, as far as that's concerned, it looks pretty good. The tracks look good, and I
The
wonder
author
if they.
the
I'm sorry. Go
author
ahead.
sort of buries the Amiga too. He talks about how much powerful the PC was compared to the Amiga in the late 90s, talking
Well,
about
duh.
talking about how the 75 megahertz Pentium machine killed the old Amigas. So I don't
Well,
know if I want to support this guy or not, to be honest with you.
why would you kill? That's a stupid comparison. Yeah, I'll agree. The late '90s PCs crushed Amiga. It came out in '85, brother. How was it? How was the PC doing back then? It's still. I
Listen,
mean, listen, I support it, but yeah, that was a dumb statement.
I'm done with that. He's dead to me. Here we go, Aaron. Our next story. This is the one that everybody's been talking about this week. The full-size Amiga Mini Maxi A500
Yeah,
Mini. Yeah. What
which
do
is
you
not
think,
what he's
Aaron?
showing here. I
Are you
believe this is.
excited? Are you ready for the next wave in retro games' latest machine?
We should credit Crazy Burger here. We're looking at his video. I've heard. I got a little inside baseball on this a while
Oh,
back.
I know
I
you
mean,
and Annie Jimmy are close. Does he have
wh-
the inside track?
actually, Jimmy has worked with these guys. If you remember
That's what I was saying.
his ill-fated uh, logo or slogan wallpaper contest was
They
with
call it the
them.
Slogo. It
But
wasn't widely attended.
from what I've heard, this thing is going. It's not going to. I don't think it's going to have a keypad on it. I don't think. And I know it's not going to have a floppy
By
drive.
keypad, do you mean numpad?
Numpad. What did I say?
Okay,
Keypad. Yeah.
keypad. I don't know. Yeah.
Numpad. I think you're probably looking at something that's more akin to the Amiga 600 in size.
Hmm.
And really, it would. I like the Amiga, the A500 Mini. It's cool. It looks like a miniature A500. That's cool. But when you go to the full size version of that, if you were to make a full size Amiga version of the A500 Mini, there'd be a lot of empty space in that thing. I mean, a lot, and it would be sort of, not only would it be wasteful, but it would be too expensive just because it's so huge. So it makes a lot more sense to, like, cut it down a little, which I think's a good idea. As long as you get the keyboard in there, I think you're okay. I wouldn't be surprised if it looks more like a 600, but in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it looked just like a 600. They could even call it the A600 Mini or Maxi or whatever. I don't know what they're going
Yeah,
to do.
there's no rule that says that the 500 nomenclature has to be used in this full-size Amiga.
Yeah. Now,
So,
it will have a working keyboard. I mean,
right.
that's
That goes without
obvious.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I was talking to Rabbi, I think it was, about the disk drive. I mean, I don't know if anybody considered the fact they thought there might be some kind of integrated disk drive, but I don't know. Can you imagine the price of that? It'd be madness
Not to
and
mention, yeah,
pointless
there's
too.
a million reasons why that will never happen.
And we'll get into a story later where, I mean, I guess if you want to get a floppy drive on your weird gizmo, you can get it. But I mean, if they get the cost of this right, I thought the A500, which sold well, it sold very well, both from everything I've read. But I thought it was too expensive. I thought they sold it for what this should cost. So, in terms of speculation on the price of this thing, I mean, I'm thinking somewhere in the like £199 range would not be surprising to me.
Well,
It'd be dumb.
here's the MO of these guys. The Amiga Mini or the A500 Mini sold well probably after the first couple price cuts because this thing got deep cuts on Amazon and secondary markets. I mean, this is TI 99 4A style
It
price cuts on
wasn't.
the
They weren't
800
that cheap. I didn't
before
think
that
it
thing
got cut
started
that
moving.
much.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
How,
And so
what's
I
the
mean,
cheapest you saw it?
from everything that I've heard, it wasn't until it got down below $99 before this thing really started moving. So I think that this thing is probably going to launch at the $250 range. You're going to get the diehard Amiga fans that go in there and buy it. But once it starts to settle down to where the A500 Mini launched, that's where it's really going to sell in big numbers. That $129 range, I think, is the sweet spot for mass market adoption of this full size. I think it's going to be an A600. I'm with you on that.
I would love to see, since they're in sort of, I'm not gonna say they're in bed with him, but they've at least given him a passing look. I'd love to see them integrate some of Jimmy's stuff into this to make this a functional, out of the box. I mean, you're not gonna get all the free stuff that a mini Amiga has in it, but just like working with Cloanto to at least get some sort of a desktop you could go to do some actual stuff with this, as opposed to the little thing that they had in the to make it less like a toy and more like the actual computer. You know what I'm saying, Boat? I
Yeah,
like to see that. It doesn't
I
mean
know
it'll
what
happen.
you're saying, but I think
Yeah.
there's more of a chance we're going to see a floppy drive than we're going to see what you described.
Well, hey, you never know. Depends on. I mean, software wise, it depends on who they've got to
What they want, what
embed
you
with
want to
them.
have is something that's brain dead easy. Okay, and that's what the original A500 Mini interface gave you. People are still, you're still, even though this thing has a full size keyboard, people are still going to buy it with the expectation that they don't have to go to Workbench. They don't have to do any of that stuff.
Well, I
And
mean,
if people want to do that stuff, it's super easy to install whatever you want on these things.
yeah. I mean, you may be onto something there, Boat. But if you're going to take the time to make one of these with a full keyboard, if you're just going to play the 20 games that were on the first one, maybe a few more, what's the point of having a keyboard? What's the point of buying it at all? It seems
So
like
I
this would be
think
something more for power users. That's just me.
maybe so. Maybe so. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. We will definitely be giving you updates because, hey, we talk about it because everybody else does.
And also, I'm getting
Next up,
one.
Aaron, gameplay of new Amiga games from October 2023. This is, I was going through YouTube and just seeing what was new on the Amiga scene. I really like this guy's channel. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy before. His name is Retro Gaming Dino. This might be that Dinosaur Pie guy.
It's
He
not.
is.
It's not.
He has. Are you sure?
Yes, I guarantee it's not him. That's
I mean, how can you
Simon
see? You
Butler?
were right there telling me, shooting me down.
No, it's
I mean,
not.
it could
It's
be.
not Simon Butler. He doesn't do Amiga stuff. He's a ZX guy.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, what this guy's done is he's made a very well indexed video with no commentary, and it's just little clips of every game that came out in October 2023. It's difficult for me sometimes to keep up with everything that's coming out. And you can't always go to Indie Retro News and read each individual story, go to Saberman's page and watch all of his clips. But I like seeing everything in one video, well indexed with the chapters and everything. Just a little, most of these clips are probably 2 or 3 minutes long. You see the games, and by the end of it, you're like, okay, I have an idea of what is out there that just came out on the Amiga in 2023 or in October 2023.
Yeah, this is. It's funny how many of these we talked about. I guess we've been halfway on top of the job. But yes,
Yeah.
this is handy and dandy. Man, I'll tell you what. October was a good month for the old Amiga too. If you look through this
Yeah.
list of stuff,
Tons of
there's a lot of
games.
good stuff on here. I can't wait to try. Yeah, this is good looking stuff. I like this. You're right. It's well indexed. He did a good job. I like a summarization for dummy. Me being dummy. And some of this stuff, like I don't know if I've seen that much footage of this Castlevania game. We talked about it, but this looks pretty sweet, Boat. Look at that. That's
Yeah.
AGA, brother. That's the power of AGA, man.
It does.
So,
It
yeah.
looks very impressive. I'm really looking forward to that Castlevania.
This one I
8.
remember because you buried that guy last week.
This is about Red Pill Garbage Fire.
Oh, would you stop? Oh, look at that. Yeah, this looks good. So, what's this guy's name was, Bo? Give him another
This is
prep.
Retro Gaming Dino. Give him a sub on YouTube. He's hovering right at 844 subscribers right now. Go on there and give him some love.
Has he been doing this sort of thing for a while? Did you see other ones from different months?
This is the very first video of his that I've ever seen. So
listen, Dino, keep that up, brother. That's good stuff right there.
I'm looking at his channel page right now. This is a fantastic channel because he's got new games on all platforms by month, including he's got MSX, all the gameplay videos from the latest MSX Dev 23 contest. News
Really?
at Spectrum Games October 23. This is a guy that you want to be
How
tuned
many
into.
subs has he got?
Only 844. So
Listen, go sub to this guy for God's sakes, because when you're putting that kind of work in, you need some action, man. That's the way he's not even
absolutely.
monetized. So yeah, that's great. Good find, Boat.
And finally, Aaron, Chris Edwards has a new video out this month. Tell us about it.
I watched this video to see what all the fuss was about. Me having a mini mig of sorts from the old mini mig gimmick I bought from what's his dude a couple years ago, and
You've
so
already forgotten the name of the
I
product.
have.
I love
I've totally
it.
forgot what's
It's
called.
called the Unamiga. The
Unamiga.
Unamiga, ladies
That's
and
right.
gentlemen.
That's right. And so this is Chris Edwards. The first part of this video, he talks about a case for the. Okay, so let's talk about the mini mig board. We've discussed it before, Boat.
We
It's
have.
a board it's a board with it gives you the ability to use a real processor on it, you know, despite the fact that it's got Mr. Light qualities in there. It's got programmable chips, but you can use a real 68,000 or any of the other versions. And so what else you can do is you can actually put in gimmicks, like Buffy's and pies and all this stuff, the
Mhm.
stuff, so
Yeah.
it's weird. It's kind of nutty, but I mean, it seems pretty stable. And
Mhm.
if you watch the video, he actually installs he puts one of the Pi Storm gimmicks in there, not Pi Storm, but the
Yeah.
little, yeah, it is Pi
Pipestorm,
Storm.
that's what it is.
And so he can have HDMI output and do all the crap you can do with that. And he puts that on the mini mig. So what you end up with is a mini mig with a Pi on it. It's layers upon layers, and it got me to thinking, Boat, about this, how wacky this is, because some people like use emulation, right? For your Amiga. Some
Mhm.
people have whatever the Mister is, simulation, okay?
Mhm.
And then some people have whatever this is. And I was trying to figure out what exactly this was. And I think I mean, it's both, right? It's simulation and real, and with a little emulation mixed in. And I thought to myself, where do we draw the line in terms of what we're doing? To me, he reads off how much this thing costs. The case alone is expensive for this bad boy. That case is not cheap. I think it was like, gosh, I can't remember. It's like $100, something like that, for that
That's
little
not that
thing.
bad.
And then
It's a
the
good looking
mini
case.
the mini mig is like, I think it's like the mini mig's like $400 or something like in that ballpark. So I remember thinking to myself, this is a $500 deal we're looking at here. That's not counting the pie and all that jive. And also, much like the thing I had, the Amiga, there's no HDMI output on it inherently, which
Mhm.
in my mind, that's a deal killer. And even
Yeah.
when he hooked up the pie to this thing, you have to set up retargetable graphics just to get the HDMI to work. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, this seems like a huge hassle. Where do you? So I know, Boat, you don't care about this stuff, so you're the perfect guy to ask. Like, where do you
Well, here
stand? What's the amount of money and time and effort to, like, where do you stand on this wacky hobby? I don't know if I've got a question here for you. It's just odd to me. What do you think about
well,
this?
the way that I see this is very similar to, the X5000, all the OS4 machines and things like that. This is a hobbyist device for people who like to tinker with hardware that have warm nostalgic feelings about the Amiga. I mean, it's an established niche. There are people out there that love the fact that you can go out and you can buy new Amiga related hardware and you can put it in a real cool case. You can plug different devices into it. It's modular to some extent. Like you said, you can plug in different processors, you can plug in different accelerators to it. And the fact that it is still a hardware based solution, that it's not software emulation, that appeals to people. The fact that you can get this thing. I'm looking at the mini mig case right now. looks like that you can get, if you buy the case and the board together, it comes
Yeah.
in at 390 bucks, which
Yeah.
is it's about the same price as a really good case and a mister.
But I don't think you get
But
a processor with it.
oh, you don't, yeah, it says CPU M68 SEC double zero. That made me believe that it was a processor,
Oh,
but
I don't know. I don't know.
I know
That
nothing about this.
yeah.
So, to me, that seems like, would I want this? No, because the Mister solved every problem I could ever possibly have for the until the end of time. But if you're somebody that is very Amiga centric in their studies, they want to be part of a community that is surrounding all of these different specialized pieces of hardware. I mean, this is not the most extravagant purchase you could make. It's definitely not the price of, the A1221 or the X5000 or anything like that. This is much more reasonable, and the fact that it's ultra expandable with all of these different doohickeys. I mean, it's a hobby. It's for people that treat Amiga hardware as a hobby.
It's definitely as I watch this because we covered this thing a long time ago, but I've forgotten about it. If you want me the truth, and I'm watching them deal with this thing, and I thought to myself, it's just an odd piece of kit, and I mean you're right, it will appeal to a certain amount of people. You've got your certainly your rich hobbyists will get into it. I wonder because I'm like you, the Mister sort of took care of a lot of my issues. I wonder if there's a way to have a 1200 core that actually is accelerated to a certain degree. I wonder if they've topped out how fast they can do it on here. I wonder if there's a way to like emulate, like if they could have a 6860 core, you know what I'm saying, for the Mister that
Hmm.
which would sort of cut out the middleman on some of this stuff. It's interesting to
Hmm.
think about, and I'm sure there's someone smarter than me that'll be able to tell us something down in the chat. If you know anything about what I'm talking about, straighten me out. I can take it down in the chat, Boat, or anyone else. I think that's all we've got, Boat. Some interesting stuff this week, though. I get a kick out of it, man.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Amiga News. What's been going on the YouTube channels these days, Aaron?
Boat. It's been actually we've gotten a lot of stuff we put up in the last game. We'll just briefly blow through it, Boat. Um, Me and the Brent covered a game on R. Sinclair this week called Their Finest Hour. I spent a lot of time playing the wrong game, Boat, before I got to because you asked me about it, and boy, I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure it'll be great." No, I'd played the DOS version to get fired up because I played the Lucas Films or LucasArts game, I believe it was, that made that, and then this was a tactical war game, and I mean
Hmm.
tactical. And I got to give the Brent credit because he picked up the gauntlet and ran with it on this one. And I think we've got the most in-depth look at this game there will ever be, ever. And there's also some gameplay footage because there wasn't any on YouTube. And for that, we also have Boat. You stuck up some music from next week's game on the show, which we'll get to here in a minute. We'll talk about that, and you talk to the people about the bizarre thing you put up today with
Yeah. So,
Mario in it.
as you guys might know, I run a side business, one of my five part-time jobs, where I am I do digitization. People bring me reel-to-reel film, they bring me VHS tapes, and I put them on USB drives or YouTube or whatever. And every once in a while, something comes around, and I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. So I hold up in front of you right now, if you're watching online. This is a VHS tape, and the label says Nintendo World Championships 1990. I thought, this might be interesting. And so I wasn't sure what to expect. I didn't know if this was going to be footage of the competition, if there was going to be something like The Wizard, that classic film. But what it was
Ah,
was a boy dancing with a costumed Mario. This is what do you call these guys that are dressed up like the mascots? There's a special name for him. But anyway, he's got the big head and everything. He looks like a sports mascot, but it's Mario. And they're dancing around while in the background a song advertising Nintendo fruit snacks plays. And I talked to the guy that gave me this tape, who is the old band director at Buffalo High School, actually. And I said, "Do you recall this at all?" And he said, "No, he has no recollection of it." But what he assumed was that, while the World Championships was going on, you have all these kids milling around, so they've got stuff for the kids to do. Kind of like when you go to a baseball game, there's like the thing where you can throw the ball and see how fast you can pitch it and stuff like that. And so this was one of the side booths where they had Dance with Mario while they advertised Nintendo Fruit Snacks, and there's a rap that plays. And I gotta say, Aaron, this kid, the band director from Buffalo High School's son, he's got some great dance moves. He puts on a full improvised routine for around 2.5 minutes.
He's cut the rug.
Yeah,
it's funny.
I enjoyed it.
When he first starts out, it looked like he was stepping up to Mario to get to have fisticuffs. The camera right now is going into puke mode. But I mean, this is quite a piece of video you've uncovered, Boat. And I will say, Mario and this kid, they've been dancing now for up 2 minutes straight. I mean, and this kid, you're right, hasn't repeated a move. He's going crazy. Mario, on the other hand, by the way, Mario is wearing his pants old guy style, if you notice that. Whoa! The kid does a full split. And this is solid gold, Boat. That's why we had to highlight that. That is gold right there, man. Yeah, please check that out. It's on the channel. One last thing I can mention. Last Friday, I did a tribute to our good friend Edgar Vigdahl of Deluxe
Not actually
Galaga.
our friend.
What's that?
Not actually our friend, but
he's my friend, spiritual friend.
That's right. That's right.
To Edgar Vigdahl, friend of the community. He's responsible for Deluxe Galaga, Deluxe Pac-Man, and then he went on to do some games that you've probably never heard of, and they're really, I don't think I played a bad game in a bunch. There was a couple that are kind of phone games that aren't the best, but I mean, there's some gold. And we go through and try to play everything he ever did. As far as I know, I don't think I missed anything except for one game that was on the iPhone. That's the only game I couldn't play. So if you're into Edgar Vigdahl, want to learn about the guy, I actually talked to one of his collaborators who collaborated with him on like everything for his whole career, including Warblade, Deluxe Galaga, and everything. And guy also did level design and stuff, and he was a real fountain of information. And so we had a good time and had a lot of fun playing tribute to Edgar. So if you're into that sort of thing, you can check that out as well. We released that this week, but I think that is all we've got, my friend.
All right. Well, what do we got coming up on the show next week?
Let's see what we got here, Boat. Oh, man. Now, you know about this. It's Power Drome. And tell them why you know, Boat.
Well, I wanted to capture some footage because I knew this game was coming up. And so I fired this up on the Mister to play. And then I kind of let it run for a while because I came over here and I was just, jacking around on the computer. And then all of a sudden I hear bow, and I'm like, what the heck is that? Where is that coming from? Power Drome has theme music that doesn't kick in unless you leave the game set for 20 minutes. So I sat around, I fired the game up again, I waited another 20 minutes, and then I hit the record button to capture that, so you can check that out on the channel. But yeah, Power Drome, it's basically Wipeout on the Amiga.
Beautiful. Well, Wipeout was born on the Amiga, so that makes that's dandy.
Yeah.
And we have started. We've always sort of done it, but occasionally you're going to see some game footage creep across the channel, and almost always it's because the footage isn't anywhere. Like I mentioned for their finest hour, like we could have used some footage for that. Please, someone make a guide for this game. But we went ahead and Brent digitized about a half hour of play, and so those occasionally will show up on the channel. I feel like we're doing, because we use a lot of footage from other channels, so I feel like we're at least trying to kick back a little bit, Boat, when it comes to this footage. So next week, it will be Power Drome. Good name, too, Boat.
Yes. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you, as always, for listening and or watching. We are now streaming live to Twitch and YouTube. So if you want to check us out on Friday nights, you can do so there. And patreon.com/Amigos podcast. We'll see you guys next time. And until then, adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos Podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.